How many times have you looked up how to combat cravings? Whenever I'm coaching my clients, irrespective of where they are in their own fitness and health journeys, I'm always asked the same question: how do I stop cravings? And I have news. You are never, ever, in the history of ever, going to be able to stop cravings. Hi, my name is Sifi. I'm a personal trainer and nutrition coach, and I work very specifically with women who are extremely frustrated and have been yo-yo dieting for years. My clients and I work together to improve their physique and restore their metabolism and free themselves of the negative cycle of crash dieting. And my intention is always to free them of a lot of food fear that comes with chronic dieting and really undoing a lot of misinformation that's instilled from diet culture. We work on emotional resilience, exercise, nutrition, mindset, and achieve a altogether leaner and stronger body alongside a really solid set of behaviors. I really don't want you to click off just because I say there is no cure for cravings. I actually want to give you as much insight into cravings and hunger and how to deal with them in a way that becomes so easy and so second nature over time that they're as good as gone. I feel like I need to put a little bit of a disclaimer and trigger warning here. Today I am going to be talking about binge eating and emotional eating, and I'm going to be sharing with you some of the key practices that I implemented in my own journey from healing from a binge eating disorder. And I make no apologies for being ruthless in my own opinions and speaking directly. I know all too well how trapped and alone a person can feel when they are struggling with binge eating and the feelings of guilt and shame that come with it. And I also know what a turn-off it is to sit back and listen to somebody giving very simple advice when it comes to managing something that just feels like it's actually, quite frankly, unmanageable. Advice that I'm giving in this video comes from the core belief that I truly believe that there is freedom to be had. I am not a therapist. I am a personal trainer who has recovered from binge eating disorder. And I noticed a huge comparison between my own set of behaviors to that of clients who are reaching out to me asking me for help with their own weight loss journeys. Yet they were constantly using food as a way of coping. If you are currently struggling with an eating disorder, get help. Contact your GP, and everything else, including watching videos like this or reading books, is supplementary to that. I am thinking about resharing my own story when it came to my 15-year span of bulimia nervosa. I still can never believe that I found healing from it, but I did. And if you think that would be an interesting share and you would like to hear more about that story, then just leave me a comment below. I love revisiting trauma for views. And whilst I'm at it, if you like this kind of video, think about pressing that subscribe button, hit the bell notification, and stay in contact. So what is a craving? A craving is a desire for something very specific. And a food craving is often described as having a strong desire to eat. And in the throes of a craving, it can feel like the desire or the obsession to eat that food can escalate to such a point that it feels like you are literally compelled to eat. And even though cravings are in fact temporary, it can feel like this certain drive to eat a certain food won't ever go away until you eat that certain food. And in my experience, it often feels like when you have a craving, there's a sort of sense of inevitability to it. Like once it's in your head, it's a done deal, it's happening. And that's a bit rubbish if that's, say, you're tracking your macros and you're trying to lose weight and it pushes you over your plan for the day. But it can also be potentially devastating if you find that really once you start, you can't stop. And I'm sure this will feel familiar to you. We don't really tend to get the same drive to eat like plain, simple foods as we do like really delicious, hyper palatable foods, really calorically dense and are loaded with salt and fat and sugar like cakes and ice creams and cookies. Although cravings do involve the appetite centers of the brain, they aren't necessarily linked with physiological hunger. And there's some really big differences between cravings and physiological hunger. So first up, let's actually look at physical hunger, especially for those of you who are sitting there going, but I crave vegetables. I get it, me too. We'll cover that. There's a lot going on around hunger and satiety, and there are far more significant factors over just caloric density and volume of food. We all know what it feels like to be physically hungry. It tends to increase gradually, and we might get the feeling of an empty stomach or a growling stomach, and you can feel a bit weak, sometimes a bit sicky, and it does feel increasingly more uncomfortable. Now, internally what's happening is your stomach is empty, your blood sugars are lowering, and so the stomach produces ghrelin, which increases appetite, gastric mobility, and gastric acid secretion. Try saying that 3 times over. It's readying us for food. And this is our body communicating with us that we need a new supply of energy, and it's driving us to take action. Hunger and feelings of hunger are about survival, and they're not really about taste or emotions. Generally, our food choices don't need to be that specific. And I would say that satisfying real physiological hunger is a lot less dramatic, because really anything simple will do. We feel a physical sensation in our body, we eat, we will experience a general sense of satisfaction afterwards, the sensations go away, lovely. There are lots of reasons behind food cravings. They can absolutely be down to undereating and regularly denying true physiological hunger. It can absolutely be down to over-restriction and regularly denying yourself certain food. And I speak a bit about this in my video, Sugar and Weight Loss. I'll put the card up here. Cravings will always come up when you're eating a bland, boring, overly regimented, strict weight loss diet.
You know, your stomach's like a dog that doesn't know when it's going to be fed next. It just hangs around until you want to kick it.
And if you team that up with too large calorie deficit, then bam, game over. And if you do not know what I mean, ask yourself how many times you've said, I'm really good during the week, but the weekend. Effort does need to go into making your diet interesting, varied, exciting, and inclusive of all foods. It may be that you've grown accustomed to a certain way of eating. So back to the vegetable example. I love vegetables. I have them nearly with every single meal. I grow them, I find them delicious. I feel awesome when I eat them. If ever I have a bit of time out from my normal routine, I crave them. It can also be down to the presence of just really gorgeous, yummy food around us. Food might just genuinely look so delicious and smell so good that it ramps up our appetite. And we can also get really positive associations with, say, remembering the comfort of your mum's seafoam icing cake. And when we feel bad, we remember that things like chocolate taste nice. It makes us feel good temporarily. Cravings can be absolutely habitual. So if you eat something every day at the same time, it becomes expected. Take my £5 daily oat milk latte. Some people believe that we have cravings because we have particular nutrient deficiencies. There's not masses of research to back this up, but no doubt you will have seen articles saying, crave chocolate, eat broccoli, or want this, eat that instead. We can also look at things like sleep or lack thereof, chronic stress, hydration, overtraining. Some can be really relevant, and a lot of them can actually even cross over into each other. But I want to focus today at times when we eat according to our emotional state and as a response to our feelings or set of circumstances. And I want to give you some tips and tools that you can use in these really quite upsetting times. We are talking specifically about emotional eating. You know, the times when we hit the fuck it switch and we find ourselves eating beyond our fill or not in alignment with the goals we've set out for ourselves. And it leaves us in a way where perhaps we don't necessarily feel physically sick, but certainly steeped in regret or panic or shame or a sense that we've let ourselves down in some way. So I'm just thinking of times like perhaps you've been actively trying to pursue fat loss, but you find yourself eating a huge packet of kettle chips and a glass of wine because you've had a crap day at the office. I'm talking specifically about eating when we're not truly consenting to it or sticking to our sensible fat loss plans. And for your information, not all diets are shit. It's just there are a lot of very shitty diets out there. My clients eat flexibly with no food taken off the table, and they often eat consistently more than they ever have while still losing weight, and they can maintain their social lives, and still cravings will come up with them because they're normal. Here, cravings or the drive to eat can come on really quite suddenly. They can feel really quite urgent and impulsive. We often want something really quite specific, and we can eat so quickly that we don't actually even taste or enjoy or are present with the food that we're eating. And we get into this kind of one is too many, 100's not enough situation. Little caveat here, when I was struggling with bulimia, I became so resigned to compulsively eating that I would actually even schedule in binges. And it wasn't even with foods that you would think that you would want to binge on. But we're going to stay away from the severity that is bulimia and stick within the parameters of very normal, very expected urges to eat when we don't really want to be eating. Before we can look at strategies to not eat, we first have to work out whether that's appropriate, because obviously we need to eat to live. We should be eating. We should be eating when we're hungry, and we should be eating for enjoyment too. So do not misinterpret the message that I'm trying to convey here. Tips I'm giving you are simply to help you ride out and ultimately reduce your cravings as and when they appear. Very often when I'm working with a new client who has been crash dieting and yo-yo dieting for years, they're very out of sync with their hunger and satiety cues. And actually trying to figure out what's driving their urge to eat can feel really unclear. Like, is it hunger? Is it emotions? And there's many things we can do to encourage an overall awareness as to whether we're feeling actually hungry or if we're feeling a strong emotional pull to eat. For example, we could start looking at overall caloric needs or macronutrient needs. We could look at very, very temporary food plans that we write together. We can deliberately program in trigger foods or previously off-limit foods. And in fact, a massive part of actually reducing cravings is by featuring the things that you're craving into your diet regularly. Again, I speak more about this in depth in my video, Sugar and Weight Loss, so check it out after this one. One of the simplest ways of ascertaining whether you are feeling physical hunger is to do the hunger test. Ask yourself, would a plain bit of chicken or an apple sound good right now? If the answer is yes, and then you follow it up with the question, is it worth getting up and going getting that right now? If the answer is still yes, then the chances are you are actually feeling physical hunger. In which case, eat. Now, sometimes it might be that you just ate and you're not sure if you're still hungry, in which case I would tell you to take a 20-minute timeout and then recheck in with yourself later using the same hunger test. I said earlier that I make no apologies for speaking very frankly and sharing my opinions on this, so here it goes. Irrespective of the severity of your craving, from the smallest onset to that horrible, overwhelming sense that a full-on binge is coming on, I treat it as exactly the same, with the same process. Now, there's no denying, the more you're conditioned to give in to your cravings, the harder it's going to be initially compliant with the strategy to stop it. The more you're in the habit of dealing with your emotional state with food, the more it's going to take bold, decisive action with set boundaries, and you can bet that you are going to have an initial level of discomfort. I mean, it's really uncomfortable. And I'm somebody who had an eating disorder, a really bad eating disorder, and I wasn't exempt from the work. Yes, mine might be more extreme, and yes, I have some very strong opinions around emotional trauma and coping habits, which I will speak out on, but I am telling you right now, what drove my binges was not down to my then emotional issues. I overate, and I consistently overate because I had conditioned myself to. And I'll also state that the most traumatizing thing that I was going through at the time of emotional eating and having this eating disorder was the binges themselves. It had nothing to do with the emotional trauma I may or may not have had. I had conditioned myself and built a habit, and I was reliant upon that habit as a means of coping. I understand this is a really hard thing to hear, but your emotional eating, your binge eating, your cravings, your lack of willpower, it is just a habit. You're using it as a coping mechanism to deal with your emotional state. Over time, you have conditioned yourself to automatically respond this way. And the strategy that goes into breaking this habit that is driven by compulsion is going to take a lot of boundaries and a lot of discipline. And I know in the world of healthy at every size and body positivity and gentle nutrition and intuitive eating that the word discipline is really quite triggering or taboo. It somehow seems to have become this toxic concept, but discipline is required for breaking a habit and instilling a new positive habit, period. So pick up a pen and a notepad and take this lot down, because I am going to share with you the most critical tips that you need to break this habit. Avoiding your triggers is not going to work. We do not have to be completely evangelical with our diet. We most certainly do not need to be avoiding everything that we might find slightly triggering. Clean eating and compliance with clean eating is not the strategy here. I mean, if you seriously think that you can go through your whole life avoiding anything particularly delicious or palatable or things that you actually enjoy or crave, you will be setting yourself up for failure. Because if you cannot do that for, let's hope you live for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, you're going to have a rough ride. And when I talk about discipline, I'm not talking about saying no to hyperpalatable foods or really finding a way of saying no to these foods forever. Not at all. I'm actually saying the direct opposite. I know that you are absolutely great at avoiding all these amazing, lovely, delicious foods when you're in the first throes of a new diet. I know that you just don't crave chocolate anymore, and whizzing a banana up in the blender is just great for ice cream. But it doesn't stick. You cannot manipulate your environment to never ever have another craving ever again. That's not what we're trying to achieve here. We want you to be able to cope with having some cravings and deal with them appropriately. Stop calling foods triggering. Discipline in this capacity means the art of learning to say no. But when we say no, we're not saying no forever, we're saying no, not now. Your life is going to be continuously filled with foods that you so-called find triggering. And even by labeling it as triggering food, it's really disempowering. It's like saying that a bar of chocolate has got more authority and command over you than you yourself. No, I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? Just say that out loud. This chocolate bar has more authority over me. The thing, the art, the power is in learning how to put a little bit of space between yourself and the immediate craving. That's it. It's no more deep than that. And another thing, if you are somebody that recognizes themselves as being a binge or emotional eater, we presume that every time we have a craving, that it automatically means it's going to be an all-out binge. So getting cravings is very worrying. We don't even contemplate, even for a second, that we could sit in any level of discomfort. And that's what a craving is. It's discomfort. It is desiring something. And the discomfort comes from really desiring something and not giving it to ourselves automatically. It will lead us to the feeling of being ill at ease. And it's the urge that is painful right now, nothing else. If you've got a kid, tell them they can't have that chocolate bar, and you can really see what's going on inside, right? And I honestly remember when I used to binge, I used to think that the idea of sitting in any level of discomfort or riding out of binge was a total waste of time, because I was so conditioned to thinking it was inevitably going to happen that what was the point? I knew I was going to eat no matter what, so why not get on with it? Why bother being uncomfortable? So in those moments, I would actually actively decide that I was going to overeat. And it's because it felt like the easier thing to do. The thing that was going to get rid of my then craving was giving into my craving. The best antidote to having a urge is to give into it. So I'd go for the easy option, but it wasn't really the easy option, because it would leave me with feelings of shame and guilt and like I was letting myself down, and I'd feel completely disempowered and also in a lot of physical discomfort. So we need to start learning how to say no, not now. And remember, when you're saying no to yourself, you're not saying no forever, it's no, not now. And if you follow my initial tips, you can have delicious foods every single day. There is no denying yourself. It's just a question of eating like an adult and eating appropriately. Back to the tantruming kid, when we've said no to a chocolate bar, we are absolutely sure that even though they're having an outrageous tantrum, that the answer is still no. We hold them accountable to that no. We have to do the same thing for ourselves. It's self-parenting. So remember, the answer is no, not now, and then putting as much distance between yourself and that food as possible. Put a timer on your phone, set it for say 20 minutes, and you can tell yourself that if you still want it in 20 minutes, you can have it. But for this next 20 minutes, you are not going to overeat. And it's in my opinion at this stage that distraction is really, really useful. And I think it can be a really appropriate tool to use initially when trying to break a habit. And ultimately, we want to be looking at a new habit to replace the old one of emotional eating, but for now, just think about doing anything to occupy yourself. Some of the things I used to do was inconvenience my husband, phone him up, chat to him. I would go and do some teeth whitening, or I would do a face mask. I would do things to keep like my hands, my mouth busy. I'd go have a hot shower. At the time, I didn't have a kid, so I could go out for a walk. Podcasts, magic coloring, origami swans. Seriously, I would do anything to put myself at distance between the food and actually taking action upon eating the food. And at some point, the craving starts slowing down and it starts dissipating. But the thing is, you don't know that it does that because you've never ever given it long enough to experience that. You've never allowed it to get to a place where it can calm down. So you just need to go through this next 20 minutes. Ask yourself, what would happen if this one time I didn't give in to my craving? Just this once. The world is going to keep on going, and I know I'm going to have women listening to this who are hardcore bingers, who feel that they really just can't control themselves, and I know this is so hard to hear, but you need to do this too. You're not exempt. You need to teach yourself that when you get a craving, it's not going to be a full-on binge. You're going to be putting the food in, but you're just not going to do it right away. So ask yourself, can I have this tomorrow? Essentially, we're teaching ourselves the art of discipline and delayed gratification. And the bare bones of it is you're trying not to cater or pander to yourself when it's not necessarily appropriate. And I don't know about you, if you're a parent, I never tell my son a hard no. It's always a no, not now. We could probably have this tomorrow. And then we can plan to put that craving in the next day. Saying no, not now is actually teaching you the power of eating with intention and empowered choice. Eating is not done as an immediate knee-jerk reaction to your emotional state. And I understand this can be a very tough thing, but you can do it. I believe in you. Really. When you are feeling like food or the compulsions to eat is taking over you, you have more power than you realize. You get to have power over your food choices. You get to have power what you will and will not eat and when. When you say no, not now, you are putting yourself in an alignment with somebody who eats with conscious choice. And this is the first step towards getting past emotional eating. It's been a lot today. We've chatted about identifying hunger and cravings. We've looked at causes for craving and emotional eating. And we've also looked at 3 massive, monumental, fundamental tips for dealing with cravings when they come up. I want to know if this advice resonates. Do you think you can do it? Or has this just pissed you off? Let me know. Leave me a comment below. It has, as always, been a pleasure. The video I've been chatting a bit about, I shall put a link to it in the description below. There's also a free download for you with lots of lovely, delicious, lower calorie sweet treats and recipes for you to try. And if you like this video, resonate with this video, or you think it could help somebody, please forward it on. And also don't forget to click like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification, and I'll see you next time.